Well, the world of music was changing in Franklin's day. Musicians tended to work either for the church or the aristocracy, but the aristocracy was going away, what with the French Revolution in France and Napoleon putting an end to the Holy Roman Empire, for starters. So with the supply of aristocrats with money to burn drying up, musicians turned to selling tickets in public concerts, and the bigger the hall, the more tickets you can sell. So the piano and the instruments of the orchestra were all re-engineered to be louder. But there wasn't anything they could do to make the glass harmonica any louder. We have reviews from the day saying, "The glass harmonica was really beautiful, if only we could hear it." Of course, since the early 20th century we've had amplification, but around 1800 this wasn't an option. So the glass harmonica fell out of use and pretty much disappeared. Even today, there are only a dozen or so performers worldwide, leaving the glass harmonica very much on the endangered musical instrument list. I personally think that the main reason the harmonica fell out of use was that it was just too quiet for ever larger concert halls. Meanwhile, there were rumors about how the harmonica was hazardous for your health. It probably didn't help that Franz Mesmer used his harmonica to mesmerize his patients. But if you look at the lifespans of the glass harmonica players for whom we have dates, one could argue that playing the harmonica actually lengthens one's life. Around 1800, the average lifespan is estimated to be about 50. So we have Benjamin Franklin lived to be 84, Franz Mesmer lived to be 81, Mary Ann Davies, 73, we think. Philip Frick, 56, he was a youngster. Joseph Schmidt-Bauer, 91. Mary Ann Kirchgessner, she was the one who Mozart heard play. And alas, she only made it to 39, but we have the story of her death, and it sounds exactly like pneumonia, which people did die from back then, and still do actually. Johann Naumann, 60, and Karl Rohlig, 54. On the question of whether glass harmonicas were safe or not, there were strong opinions on both sides. Some argued they were bad for you, others that they improved your health. So around 1800, there was concern about the ill effects of all music. Some were saying that even Handel and Beethoven's music were bad for you too. One of the main proponents of the idea that the glass harmonica was bad for you was a German glass harmonica player and inventor named Karl Rohlig. He claims to have invented a glass harmonica with a keyboard, which you really could play like a piano. And one of the features that Rohlig touted was that if you bought his keyboard version, you would avoid the nerve damage caused by regular harmonicas. So you have to wonder how much of the nerve damage drama was actually just marketing hype. By the way, no keyboard glass harmonicas have survived by Rohlig or anyone else, so we have no idea if they ever even worked. A modern version of the supposed health hazards of playing the harmonica is that players got lead poisoning from their instruments made of lead glass. To begin, let's note that one gets lead poisoning either by inhaling the dust or ingesting lead by mouth. You can safely hold raw lead in your hands, just be sure to thoroughly wash them before eating your sandwich. Now, glass harmonicas back then weren't generally made of lead glass. Lead glass was much more expensive than regular glass, and regular glass works just fine. So then it's asserted that players were poisoned by the lead paint used to decorate the glasses. But when harmonica glasses were painted, they were painted on the inside of the glasses, so players didn't touch the paint because paint would prevent that magic wet finger on the wine glass rim phenomenon. So then it has been proposed that players contracted lead poisoning by licking their fingers to moisten the glasses, gradually absorbing lead that way. But a person just can't produce enough saliva to play an harmonica. I've tried it, not even close. Meanwhile, in that era, lead poisoning was in fact very common. Lead oxide was added to wine as a preservative. Doctors prescribed compounds made with lead for various ailments. Lead oxide powder was used in makeup. Liquor was distilled in stills using lead pipes. Cooking pots were made of tin lead alloys. Everyone was getting lead poisoning, whether they played the harmonica or not. In fact, Franklin himself was one of the first to identify lead as a health hazard, championing the cause of not using lead tubing in liquor stills for starters. So then, why did the harmonica die out? Back in 1800, it would have several strikes against it. They were fragile, especially on what passed for cobblestone roads back then, and cobblestone roads were deluxe, not to mention dirt roads and all of that. They were quiet, no amplification yet, and they were expensive. There was no such thing as an inexpensive harmonica for beginners. So then, why are harmonicas still rare today? Fragile? Maybe back then, but today much less than they were before, not any more fragile than, say, a violin. Too quiet? It's not a problem anymore. We have amplification. Expensive? There's still no such thing as an inexpensive harmonica for beginners, so that's still a problem. So in the end, I just don't have a good answer for why the glass harmonica isn't more prevalent today.